It's October 1857. London is soaked in soot and fog. The gas lamps flicker like dying stars above the slick cobblestones of Bethnal Green. Carriages rattle over puddles lined with horse dung and chimney soot, and in the distance, Big Ben tolls 8 o'clock. You're not in the nice part of town. You're on the eastern edge of London, where the air stinks of coal, boiling bones, and cheap gin. The Asylum looms ahead. St. Aldwyn's institution for the care of the feeble-minded, melancholic, and morally deviant. Built in 1822. Red brick. Iron gates. Gothic arches meant to look benevolent, but feel more like prison bars. You've seen it from the outside before. Everyone in the East End has. Nobody wants to end up here. It's where the laundresses go when they start talking to angels. Where former governesses are sent when they cry too much after childbirth. Where poor men are dumped when they stop being useful. You don't know why you're here. Not exactly. Maybe it was your landlady who reported you. Said you'd been pacing at night. Said you muttered things. Or maybe it was the doctor. The one who prescribed laudanum for your nerves. And then wrote a letter to the local board of health when you didn't improve fast enough. It could have been anything, really. In 1857, you can be institutionalized for nearly any deviation from what's considered proper behavior, especially if you're a woman. Melancholia, hysteria, religious mania, nervous prostration, too much grief, too little obedience, too much imagination. You're led through the front gate by a constable and a matron in grey. The constable doesn't speak, just nods at the porter, signs the committal ledger, and vanishes into the fog. You try to follow him with your eyes, but the iron gate closes behind you. Slowly, with finality. The entry hall is massive. Cathedral ceilings, stone floors so cold your boots slip slightly on the moisture. The place is lit by gas sconces that hiss and glow with a dirty orange light. You smell carbolic acid, soap, wet wool, and underneath it all, urine. The staff pretend not to notice. A clerk sits at a writing desk with a goose feather pen and a stack of blank intake forms. His fingers are stained with ink and tobacco. His collar is starched too high, pinching his neck. He doesn't look at you, just reaches for the admittance paper the matron carries. He begins reading aloud. Name, age, parish, presenting symptoms, morbid sadness, possible delusions, physical weakness, fitful sleep, suspected hysteria. Order signed by Dr. Horace Whiteley, Bethnal Green Union. Dated the 9th of October. He looks up briefly, eyes scanning your face for signs of madness, or maybe just weakness. Then he stamps the page with a red wax seal of the Metropolitan Lunacy Commission. Your name is no longer yours. You're now patient 2187F, female ward, East Wing. The matron leads you away. Her shoes squeak against the stone floor. No one explains anything. You pass a statue of Saint Dymphna, patron saint of the insane, her plaster face cracked and grey. The chapel is locked. The windows are barred. The air gets colder with every step down the corridor. You pass rooms with black wooden doors, some open, some closed. Inside, you glimpse cots with iron frames and thin straw mattresses, buckets in corners. One woman is rocking back and forth, pulling at the hem of her chemise. Another stands by the window, mouthing something silently to the glass. The walls are painted government grey, peeling. The plaster is spotted with mould. You can hear the groan of old copper pipes overhead, the rush of steam, and somewhere down the hall, a soft, rhythmic thumping, like a head gently striking a padded wall. You're shown to your cell, room 47B, East Wing. The matron unlocks the door with a large brass key, worn smooth from use. Inside, the cell is 8 feet by 6. Bare walls, iron bedstead, thin horsehair mattress, a folded institutional shift, standard issue lies at the foot of the bed. It smells of carbolic acid and bleach. In the corner, a tin pail, no basin, no mirror, no belongings. Your boots are taken. Your corset is taken. The matron removes the comb from your hair. She doesn't speak, but when your fingers linger over the comb, she slaps your hand away. Gently. Practiced. The door closes. The lock clicks. Twice. You sit on the edge of the bed. It groans. The springs are rusted and uneven. There's a spider in the corner of the ceiling. Black. Watching you. Your fingers begin to itch. You hear footsteps in the hall. A distant scream, the rattle of chains, someone laughing, sharp, high-pitched, and echoing down the corridor like wind through a crypt. And that's when you see it. On the inside of your cell door, scratched deep into the wood. A message. Just one word. Repent. You don't know how much time passes. The gaslight in the corridor barely flickers under the door. There are no clocks in here. The staff don't tell time with bells. They tell it by when the groaning gets louder and when the moaning dies off. You lie back. The ceiling has cracks shaped like rivers. Water damage streaks the corners. You think one of the floorboards beneath you might be moving, might be mice, or worse. They didn't give you a blanket. The shift is thin. Your undergarments were taken for cleaning. That's what the matron said. But you know better. Everything you once wore is now someone else's property. Or it's burning slowly in the hospital furnace out back. That was standard procedure, especially for women brought in with hysterical contamination. Clothes were thought to carry mental uncleanliness, especially female ones. They feared madness could cling to fabric like disease. You don't remember falling asleep, but you do remember waking up. The scream comes at what must be midnight, not high-pitched, not wild, but slow, like someone remembered they were alive and didn't want to be. It stretches out for what feels like minutes, echoing through the corridor until it fades into something worse. Silence. The corridor smells like piss and wet wool. Then comes the footsteps. Not hurried, not urgent, just heavy, deliberate. A guard, maybe, or the night porter. He drags something behind him. You hear it thump once, twice, then silence. Then the slow jingle of keys. He stops just outside your door. You freeze, you're not even breathing. He says nothing, just stands. Your heart is a hammer in your throat. Then the keys jingle again, and he moves on. You exhale, slowly. Morning, if you can call it that, begins with a tray shoved through the door slot. Tin cup, weak tea, bread so hard it cracks when you bite it. Might be yesterday's, might be last week's. The cup has a chip on the rim. Rust, maybe, or dried blood. You're not sure which is worse. The door swings open 10 minutes later. A different matron now, larger, no apron, just grey skirts, boots, and a bunch of iron rings hanging from her belt like trophies. Stand up, she says. You do. She watches your face, searching for signs of defiance. You look down. That's safer. Ward check, she mutters. Inspection. She doesn't check you. She checks the walls, the bedding, the bucket. She makes a mark on a little wooden clipboard and leaves. No good morning, No words of reassurance. You're not a guest. You're an object. You're led to the common room 2 hours later. It's cold. Stone floors. High-arched windows caked with soot. A few patients sit at long wooden benches. Heads down, hands folded. You're not allowed to talk. Not yet. Observation period. First 72 hours. The walls have cracks like veins. The fireplaces aren't lit. The windows are too high to see out of. Just enough light to cast shadows. Nothing more. There's a nurse on duty. She holds a stick. Thin, like a switch. Not to beat you, not directly, but to tap the wall. 1 tap means silence. 2 taps means sit. 3 taps, follow her. You hear someone whispering behind you. You don't turn. The matron warned you already. Do not engage with the excitable. That means the ones who talk too much, laugh too loud, ask questions. Those are the lunatics. The ones you're not supposed to become. You're led into the examination hall by late morning. It's a large echoing room with tiled walls and a single raised table in the middle. Something between an altar and an autopsy slab. A man in a black coat enters. Tall, thin, wire-rimmed spectacles, no smile, no introduction. This is the house physician. Likely trained at Guy's Hospital or the Royal College of Physicians. Maybe once a promising doctor. Now relegated here to the back end of madness, where theories go to rot. He doesn't speak to you directly. Instead, he speaks about you. Pale complexion, rapid breathing, dilated pupils. Subject appears undernourished, likely anxious melancholia. He nods to the matron. She takes notes on a slate board. He lifts your hands, looks at your nails, checks for tremors, smells your breath. You want to speak, to say you're sane, that this is all a mistake. But your throat is locked tight. He presses a stethoscope to your chest. It's cold enough to make you flinch. Elevated heart rate, he murmurs. Then he opens a leather satchel. You see small tools, a tuning fork, a reflex hammer, a brass syringe. You don't know what they're for. He doesn't use them. Not yet. He makes a note. No signs of epilepsy, no evident hallucinations. Recommend water treatment and observation. Then he's gone. Just like that. You return to your cell. No one says a word. Not even when you pass the woman screaming in Latin. Not even when you step around the man rocking back and forth, cradling a cloth doll missing its head. Back in your room. A basin waits. Cold water therapy. The nurse explains briskly, wash. Cold soothes the nerves. Hot excites them. This was standard treatment in 1857. Cold water immersion to pacify the overactive mind. Some patients were bathed. Others simply had buckets dumped over their heads. Ice water, if you were considered uncooperative. You plunge your hands into the basin. The water is colder than anything you felt in weeks. It steals the breath from your lungs. You wash. Quickly. Quietly. You don't want to attract attention. There are stories. The older women whisper them behind hands. About the ones who were taken to the cellar. About the man in Ward D who refused food for 3 days and was strapped to the chair. About the woman who screamed about voices and was bled until she stopped screaming. And about the boy with excessive nerves who was treated with laudanum until he forgot his own name. That last one might have been yesterday. You try to rest. The walls creak with the weight of time. Your mattress smells of mildew and ammonia. You shift and feel something beneath it. Paper, folded. You pull it out slowly. It's a scrap torn from a Bible. Book of Job. The passage is underlined. You can barely read it in the dim light. Why is life given to a man whose way is hid, and whom God hath hedged in? Someone underlined that in charcoal, and wrote beneath it, "They don't want to heal us. They want us quiet." You read it twice, and then, for the first time since you arrived, you begin to wonder if you will leave this place at all. Afternoon in the asylum doesn't feel like time passing. It feels like time stalling. There's no sun in your cell, no clock to mark the hours, only routine, and pain, and silence. They bring you to the activity hall, if you can call it that. It's a long chamber with a few tables, benches, a chalkboard no one uses, and several women sitting in silence. No speaking is permitted. Not yet. You're still under adjustment. One woman is sewing nothing into a patch of burlap. Another is peeling the wax from a candle with perfect precision, flake by flake. Another is holding a rag doll upside down and muttering into its cloth stomach. A nurse watches from the doorway with her arms folded. A cane rests lightly against her hip. Not a switch, not a stick. A cane. For the ones who break silence. You're handed a slate and a piece of chalk. You're supposed to write something. Anything. It's part of their assessment. Some kind of cognitive test. But the moment your chalk touches the slate, your hands tremble. Not from fear. From the cold. You haven't been warm since you got here. You scratch out your name. Then you hesitate. Then, just to see what happens, you write a question. When do I leave? The nurse takes the slate from you, looks at it, then wipes it clean. Mid-afternoon is when the treatments begin. You're called back to the examination hall. You notice a corridor you hadn't seen before. Narrow, windowless, lined with hooks on the wall. And from somewhere deeper, you hear something turning. Something spinning. They take you to a room called the therapy ward. Inside sits the rotational chair, a device straight out of madness masquerading as medicine. It looks like a giant wooden dining chair mounted on a spinning platform, with leather straps for the arms and legs. You've heard of this. The Cox's chair. Invented decades ago, still used here. They believe, truly, that spinning you in a circle will balance your humours. That the dizziness purges the mind. Only 5 minutes, says the doctor. It calms the excitable. You tell him, as calmly as you can, that you are not excitable. He doesn't answer. The nurse buckles the straps around your wrists and ankles. The leather is stiff, greasy from old sweat. Then the chair turns. Slow at first, then faster, and faster. Your vision blurs, your ears ring, your mouth tastes iron, and just when you're about to cry out, they stop it. But the world doesn't stop spinning. Not for you. They unstrap you. You stumble to your feet, and they lead you back to your room. No explanation, no evaluation. You vomit in the corner. Evening meal, if you can call it that. Mutton broth, cold. Bread soaked in brine. A single boiled carrot. A woman at the far end of the room refuses to eat. She holds her mouth shut, violently. Shakes her head. She is maybe 20, maybe 50. It's hard to tell anymore. 2 attendants come. One holds her arms. The other takes out a metal feeding spoon, long, with a curved end. They pinch her nose until she opens her mouth to breathe, and they pour it in. It drips down her chin, onto her shift, onto the floor. You look away. Back in your cell, you find something new. A scrap of cloth tucked into the mattress seam. You pull it loose. It's a handkerchief, stained with dry blood and embroidered with a name, Mary Elwood. Below it, scratched faintly in needle marks. Still here. You don't sleep that night, because around midnight, someone whispers through the door slit. Not a scream, not a groan, a whisper. They don't keep the dangerous ones downstairs. They keep them upstairs, under the chapel. That's where the real treatments are. The voice is clear, calm, controlled, not mad, not like the others. You whisper back, "Who are you?" No answer, just footsteps fading into nothing. You begin to keep track of time, of names, of routines. Not with a pencil. They'd never give you that. You scratch them into your bedpost with a chipped nail. 1 scratch equals sunrise, 2 equals the spinning chair, 3 equals when Mary Elwood is taken again, 4 equals the scream that never gets answered, 5 equals the priest who visits the men's ward but never the women's, 6 equals the girl with no teeth, 7 equals the name you're trying not to forget. Yours. Days blur. Some patients are released. You see them walk out, pale, blinking into the daylight. But most are carried out, feet dangling, wrapped in canvas. No one ever speaks their names again. You try to stay invisible, compliant, quiet, cooperative. But the doctor begins to visit more often, at odd hours. He speaks of progress and new procedures. He says, "You're not responding fast enough." He mentions wet sheet wraps and cranial irrigation. You ask what those are. He doesn't answer, just makes a note. One night, they come to your room, 2 orderlies, a nurse. They say nothing. You try to stand. They sit you down, strap your wrists, your ankles, your forehead. You scream. They place the leather gag in your mouth. For your safety, they say. You see the basin of ice water. You see the cloth. And then the light goes out. You wake up choking. Your skin is wrapped in linen, soaked, freezing. You're on the floor. Your body is stiff. The air tastes like iron and lye. Wet sheet treatment. They do it at night so no one sees the screaming. It was invented in France, brought to England as a humane alternative to restraint. The idea is that cold calms the nerves, slows the blood, rebalances the mind. What it really does is trap you in your own body. You're wrapped like a corpse in a shroud, soaked in water just above freezing. Your arms are pinned, your legs stiff, your face exposed to air that bites. They leave you there, for hours, sometimes until morning. The first time, you cry. The second, you try to count the stones in the wall. The third time, you don't even flinch. You begin to drift somewhere else. Not sleep, not madness. Something in between. A place where your body is a distant thing, and your thoughts echo like whispers in a cathedral. This is what they call healing. They unwrap you by dawn. You're shivering, bruised, and leaking mucus from your nose. The matron dabs your face with a rough cloth. "Better now," she says flatly. She doesn't ask how you feel. They never ask. They just observe. Later you're taken to the East Garden, a brief moment outside, part of the moral therapy regimen. It's nothing like a real garden, just a patch of dying grass behind iron bars, cracked paving stones, a few skeletal trees that lean like old drunkards. 2 women sit on a bench, staring into space. A third walks in circles, counting her steps. You stand by the wall, cold sun on your face, and that's when she speaks. Her voice is just behind your shoulder. You're not mad. I can see it. You turn. She's tall, thin, pale as milk, red circles under her eyes, but her posture is straight, her voice measured. My name is Josephine, she says. Room 19. Don't look surprised. I've been here longer than most. You try to speak, but your mouth is dry. She presses a crumb of bread into your palm. You'll need strength soon, she says. You ask, strength for what? She glances at the walls, at the windows, then leans closer. Upstairs, under the chapel. That's where they keep the real ones. The ones they're trying to forget. You ask, why? She looks at you, calm, resigned. Because they talk back. Because they remember. Because they saw too much. That night, you pretend to sleep. You lie still as the corridor quiets, and then you hear it again. That whispering voice through the door slit. Only this time, it's not Josephine. It's a man's voice. Low, measured, not broken, not rambling. They've opened the upper ward again, he says. Someone new was taken last night. Young. Didn't scream until the second hour. We think it's a test. They want to see how far the mind can bend. They don't treat us anymore. They study us. You sit up slowly. Press your ear to the slit. Tomorrow they'll call you for deep rest. That's what they call the upstairs injections. Don't drink what they give you. And don't let them take your blood. It's not just a sample. Then silence. No footsteps. No retreating shadow. Just quiet. And a long, slow creak in the boards overhead. The next day, it begins exactly as he said. You're summoned to the second floor. A place you haven't seen before. The chapel corridor is lined with stained glass windows, mostly broken. Dust coats every surface. The staff here wear different uniforms. White aprons, long black coats. Their faces are harder. Their smiles tighter. You're taken to a small room with a padded table and a locked cabinet. A nurse fills a glass with something cloudy. Opiate tincture. Maybe chloral. Maybe worse. You ask what it is. She smiles. Just a sedative for your peace. You don't drink it? Not yet. You glance to your left. And there, scratched into the underside of the wooden table in hurried letters. They drug you before they cut. You let the glass fall. The nurse gasps. The orderlies move. You scream. Not wildly, not theatrically, strategically. You scream like someone losing her mind. Because in here, madness is safer than lucidity. The doctor arrives. Tall, thin, same one from the spinning chair. His eyes scan you with clinical interest, not alarm. You think he enjoys this? The unraveling? The control? Perhaps a delay is warranted, he says. Let her settle. They take you back to your room. You don't fight, but you smile. Because now you know what's upstairs. And that you were never meant to know. You're back in your cell. The door is locked. The window is shut. But you're no longer asking why. Now you're asking, how long? How long before they try again? How long before your voice, yourself, is erased? Because that's what they do here. They don't just confine the body, they extract the person. Slowly, carefully, until only compliance is left. But something changed last night. They saw the fear in your face, and they assumed it was surrender. But it wasn't. It was clarity. You're not alone. That evening, Josephine finds you again. Not in the corridor, not in the garden, in the bath ward. You've been summoned there for cleansing. A once-a-week ritual meant to scrub the body and soothe the nervous system. You sit in lukewarm water in a rusted iron tub, while two silent nurses scrub your arms with rough brushes. Josephine is in the tub beside yours. Her arms are bruised. Her eyes, alert. She speaks softly, just above the sound of dripping water. Tomorrow night, 2 hours past midnight, when the gas lamps flicker and the guards take their smoke. You nod, once. There's a door behind the laundry room, no lock, just a latch, covered by crates. We won't get far, but we'll get out. You glance at the nurse. She doesn't seem to notice. But listen, Josephine adds, if we don't make it, don't let them take your teeth. You blink. My teeth? That's what they're studying, she says. Bone. Decay. The brain too, yes. But lately, they've been cataloguing teeth. Classifying madness by molar. She laughs. But it's not a joke. You feel sick. Later that night, you're brought again to the therapy wing. You're told this is your deep rest session. You don't fight. You don't protest. You've learned to play the part. The doctor arrives, the same one, always the same, and examines your eyes with a candle. Measures your pulse, makes a note on a fresh sheet of parchment. His handwriting is delicate, artistic, almost. Then he steps aside, and they bring in another patient. Male, bound, barefoot, covered in welts. The staff speak as if you're not there. This one's a screamer, one says. 3 days without food, another adds. You sit perfectly still. The nurse takes a large glass syringe from the cabinet, fills it with a cloudy white solution. The man is strapped down. The gag is tied. And just before the needle pierces his arm, he looks at you. His eyes are lucid, calm. And in that moment, you recognize him. The voice from the door slit. He doesn't scream, even as they inject him, even as he begins to seize, even as they wheel him away. Back in your room, your hands are shaking. You clench them. You can't afford weakness, not now. You tear a strip from your shift and wrap it around your thigh, tight. A reminder, you are still real. You are still you. Midnight comes. The corridor is quiet. No bells, no boots. Just the ticking of the asylum itself. Pipes expanding, wood creaking, lungs exhaling fear into the dark. You count the minutes. Then, 2 gas lights in the hall flicker. Briefly. Just as Josephine said. You slip into the corridor. You move barefoot. Silent. Past the ward door. Past the offices. Past the whispering prayer room with its broken statue of St. Dymphna. The laundry room is empty. You find the crates. Just like she said. Behind them, a wooden door. Old. Unpainted. No lock. You lift the latch. It creaks open. Cold night air rushes in, and you almost collapse. You'd forgotten what real air smells like, what moonlight feels like. You step outside. Josephine is there, waiting in a nurse's cloak, holding a lantern with one hand, a rusted key in the other. You ask where she got it. She just smiles. I was here before most of them were born. I know where the rot is deepest. Together you move across the rear yard, past the ash pit, past the locked cellar door that was never supposed to be opened again. And then you hear it. Footsteps, not one pair. 3. They've found you. Josephine pushes you behind the wall. Run, she hisses. Now. You hesitate. You reach for her hand, but she's already moving. Back toward the steps. Back into the building. She looks over her shoulder and says something you'll never forget. They can't keep all of us quiet forever. And then she's gone. You run. Into the hedge, over the back fence, through the brush and into the street. You're barefoot, half naked, wild-eyed, and you don't care, because you're free. Or at least, you think you are. 3 days later, you're in a boarding house in Whitechapel. Cheap, damp, anonymous. You've traded your cloak for coins, bought soup, found paper. You're trying to write it all down, to remember. But your hand keeps shaking. You can't stop hearing the whispers. And then, just before sleep, you feel it. A pain in your jaw. You look in the mirror. Your front tooth is loose. And suddenly, you're not sure. Not sure if you made it out. Not sure if you ever left. Not sure if the asylum was ever meant to keep you in, or if it's still inside you.